Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa. And tonight we concentrate on Uganda as it braces for tense presidential and parliamentary elections on Thursday. It's doing so without internet as a blackout descends on the eve of the vote and security is beefed up in the capital. Uganda's heading into Thursday's presidential and parliamentary elections offline. On Wednesday evening, communications regulator ordered that the internet be cut across the country. The blackout comes as 10 candidates vie to unseat long-term leader President Yoweri Museveni, who's running for a sixth term. A day earlier, all social media and messaging apps were banned ahead of the vote.
During her breaks, this waitress usually looks up the news on social media. It's the day before the vote and access has been blocked by authorities.
Yesterday morning at around 7:30, I couldn't access anything.
The shutdown was in response to Facebook's closure of government accounts on Monday. The tech giant said it had uncovered a network of fake and duplicate profiles linked to the Ministry of Information. The political struggle is having economic consequences. This phone credit vendor is feeling distraught.
I lost a lot of business because I have clients who are very far away from here, who just send messages using social media, who just talk to me using social media, and then I get back to them using social media. So right now we can't communicate because they're not with me, because they're not near me and they can't use social media.
The shutdown has made daily life difficult.
This is the only form of communication with COVID-19 where people can be able to communicate real time about what is happening, where they can communicate with the tally centers or with the electoral centers or with the helplines and places where they can ask for help if anything is happening.
Access to social media might be restored after the election. For now, keeping track of developments during voting day will be more difficult for the majority of Ugandans.
Well, Uganda has never seen a peaceful transfer of power ever since it gained independence from Britain in 1962. This time around, allegations of outside interference have led to a charged atmosphere. Tanks were in the streets of Kampala on Wednesday as security was tightened ahead of the vote. The challenges posed by the pandemic have also made preparations more difficult. Grania Harrington has more.
So ahead of polls opening at 7 a.m. tomorrow, the Ugandan authorities have said that this is going to be a COVID-19 compliant election. Now, what that means is that voters must wear their masks on the way to the polling station, but it also means that they have to go home directly after the vote. They need to leave the polling station as soon as they've voted. Now, some opposition candidates have objected to this, and they've urged voters to defy this regulation and to stay in polling stations, they say, to guard the vote. Now, there will be candidates' agents for each party within the polling stations, but according to this year's regulations, cameras and camera phones will not be allowed, although journalists will be allowed inside polling stations. There'll be fewer international observers this year too. The European Union hasn't sent a mission this year, and just this morning, the US Embassy sent around a press statement saying that they would not send observers to this election because 75% of the observers that they had tried to accredit were refused accreditation. Now, President Museveni was on television last night urging for a peaceful election, and the security services have also warned that they will have a strong presence tomorrow to ensure a peaceful vote and to ensure compliance with those regulations. Now, we've seen a bigger security presence around Kampala in particular for the past couple of weeks. That was mainly police. Yesterday, a large military convoy drove straight through the centre of town, known to be an opposition stronghold. So it's clear that there'll be a large security presence here tomorrow. The Electoral Commission has said they will do their best to ensure there'll be a peaceful election. In 2016, particularly here in Kampala, ballot papers did not arrive on time, and that caused some trouble. But the Electoral Commission says that this year they have everything prepared to be ready on time for polling stations to open tomorrow morning.
Well, as mentioned there by Grania, few observers will be present during this vote. A handful of accreditations were granted. The country's Electoral Commission says, though, that it's not worried by the US's about turn on observing the election and that it is confident that things will pan out as planned.
You can turn up or you can't turn up. If you don't want, it's so too bad that you have said you're not coming to participate. It's bad. It's too bad. But the issue is elections must take place as planned and organized. They must take place. And they are going to take place. Yes, observers play an important role. We are not saying they don't play an important role. But in the final analysis, the elections must and shall proceed.
Well, on the eve of the vote, parts of Kampala were unusually deserted. Many Ugandans have left the capital and travelled out into the countryside to vote. Our team sent this report.
There's only a few hours of service left at this restaurant. Its owner is closing up early. As Ugandans prepare to head out to vote, she's decided to shut up shop to protect herself and her property.
We are closing our business because of elections. Because we see in that elections there can be some problems like troubles. Other people, they can die. In those troubles, they can steal our things.
Yoneki packs her bags as she prepares to escape Kampala. She plans on being away from the capital until next week, after election results are announced. Many fear an eruption of violence if one of the 11 candidates doesn't accept the outcome of the vote.
Usually at this time, there are normally a lot of people coming back from work and then others going away from their working places. It shows that people are in fear of what might happen in the upcoming election.
Kisa isn't planning on leaving, but she will lock herself at home. She intends to stay indoors, especially on election day.
What I'll do is to lock myself inside here and hope for the best and hope for the security, the army to secure us and our lives. The most we can do is to lock ourselves inside here and have everything we need and wait for the situation to calm down.
Kampala is still scarred by the pre-electoral violence in November, in which at least 54 people were killed as security forces cracked down on protesters.
Now, as many Ugandans desert urban centres for the villages, over 1.4 million refugees, mainly in the country's north, will have little choice but to stay put. Many have fled instability elsewhere in the region and are hoping that Thursday's vote goes smoothly. Uganda is one of the largest refugee hosting countries on the continent. So I'm joined now by Doug Yates. Doug, that must be a huge drain on the country. Why does Uganda welcome quite so many refugees?
Hello. Yeah, Uganda has an open door policy to refugees, but it happens to be surrounded by numerous conflicts. To the north, there's a civil war in South Sudan, and about 3/4 of these refugees have fled from South Sudan. Then to the east, you've got the Democratic Republic of Congo, the eastern DRC, with the Ituri and the Kivu conflict, and about 1/5 of these refugees come from there. The rest have come up from conflicts in Burundi, which had had a crisis over President Nkurunziza, and Tanzania. So Uganda is flooded because of conflicts surrounding it.
And does it get much help from the international community in looking after those camps? I mean, Uganda is quite a strong Western ally.
Right. Traditionally, the UN High Commission for Refugees does work for those camps, and the World Food Program has provided food. But this year, the World Food Program, which won the Nobel Peace Prize, has not managed to get the money that's been promised to it, and it might have to cut food relief to the refugees in Uganda.
So with so many South Sudanese refugees, presumably Uganda is particularly invested in seeing a peace deal struck over the border.
Yeah, if we can manage to create peace in South Sudan, Uganda's refugee load would drop by 3/4, and it would be able to properly take care of the remaining refugees. Peace in the region is the key to the refugee crisis.
Thanks very much. Douglas Yates there speaking to me a little bit about the background of Uganda being one of the countries with the highest refugee populations on the continent. That is, though, all we have time for on Eye on Africa. Do stay with us. Short break and more news and headlines from around the world coming up.